Hello, gentlemen, and welcome to the Men Save Your Marriage show. My name is Terry. I'm your host. I did an autopsy on my failed marriage, and now I use the lessons that I learned to coach other men on how to save their marriage before it fails. I'm going to share with you the things I wish someone would have shared with me before my marriage failed. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hello, gentlemen, and welcome back. You heard the bell. That means it's time to enter the ring, and we are in the ring for the fight to save your marriage. My name is Terry, as you know. Welcome back for episode number 16. Today we're going to introduce a new topic, and we're going to dive right into this. We're going to talk about money problems, navigating financial stress together. So welcome to the episode. This is all about money. This is one of the biggest sources of stress and conflict in marriage. Financial stress can break even the strongest relationships, but it doesn't have to. And I'm going to show you how, give you a few ideas on budgeting, saving, communicating about money in a way that will strengthen your marriage rather than tearing it apart. So if you're ready, let's get into this, shall we? So first of all, financial struggles are really one of the leading causes of marital strife. We got to have open, honest conversations about money, make joint financial decisions, and support each other through financial stress. But it's not easy. And as I said just a few minutes ago, this is one of the leading reasons, and it can easily tear a marriage apart. So as we dig into this, as you know, I'm going to come to you typically with 3 points, and we're going to run through each of the three of them. But this is really just to spark. You already know a lot of this. This is just to spark some fresh thought in your mind. So let's jump right in, shall we? Let's get to the first one. How financial stress impacts marriage and leads to conflict. I think it's important to begin with to say that, money problems money problems are rarely just about money. They really just aren't. This is trust, this is priorities, it's communication. It's all of the other things around the money that feed into it. So, a money issue isn't usually in a marriage. I'm talking, in the conflict in a marriage, and especially as we're here talking about struggling marriages, it's typically so much more than money. So what are some of the common fights we might have financially, right? See, one spouse spends impulsively while the other one's a saver, right? You got a spender and a saver. Isn't that always how it seems to be? Debt creates anxiety. It can very easily cause blame, where one blames the other, and most certainly resentment because of what someone did. What about different money mindsets? One sees money as security, the other sees it as freedom. It depends on your background. It depends on your family history. It depends on what you may have had. And there's so many factors that go into this. And then we get this man and this woman that come together in this marriage, and they've got to deal with this. And now your weaknesses, your frailties may be exposed in such a way that it could be so stressful. I've even seen it in some of the marriages that I've counseled and some of the guys that I've worked with, where one of the couples are hiding their spending or their financial decisions, almost like a financial infidelity. So these are all just very common financial fights, and they come up over and over and over again, and we really have to get to a place where we can deal with these. So those are some of the stressors, but let's talk about what the effects of financial stress on a marriage can look like. Increased arguments, resentment, tension. Obviously, it just multiplies everything by an exponential factor. I mean, you're here because you may be struggling in your marriage. That's what I talk about. And then you throw money problems on top of that, and it's just a force multiplier. It's a resentment multiplier. It's a stress multiplier. The financial piece, as I said a few minutes ago, it's way more than just money. And the stress of it can be such just a huge multiplier, a force multiplier. So you have increased arguments, resentment, maybe some increased tension in the marriage. Then you're talking about a loss of intimacy. Stress about money definitely spills into other areas, including emotional and physical connection. How do you connect with somebody emotionally when you're stressed and arguing about money? You're fighting over money. And if you can't connect emotionally, how are you going to connect physically? It's just not going to happen. And one of the other stressors is you feel like you're financial opposites. You're not teammates anymore. You're not two people in a foxhole covering each other's back, fighting for each other, fighting for the marriage. Now you feel like you're on opposite teams, and it's such a stressful thing. Here's another thing, and this is very important to remember, especially in the relationship. Money is not just math. Money's emotional. And the goal isn't just to make more or spend less, but to get on the same page with your spouse. Even if it isn't a particularly pretty page, if you're on the page together, there's hope. So that's what it looks like in some of the ways that financial stress can impact a marriage and how it can lead to conflict. But let's talk about some strategies now. Let's move into the second talking point here, and some strategies for budgeting and saving, but really how you manage the money together. Okay. First of all, and let me pause here to say, gentlemen, we just talked a week or two ago about leadership, an episode or two ago about leadership. This is an excellent opportunity for you to lead and lead well. Okay, and it can be some very uncomfortable conversations, but if you lead well, it can be an absolutely excellent opportunity to start building some foundation with each other again in the midst of a struggling marriage. So if you were going to lead in this, one of the first suggestions I would do is, and you want to deal with the stresses of the financial piece of your marriage, then I would start with what I call a no-blame money talk. You're going to set aside time and you're going to discuss money, but here's the thing. You're going to do it without accusation or judgment. You can't accuse or judge her. She can't accuse or judge you. And you can't accuse or judge yourself. You don't get to fall on your sword. She doesn't get to bring it up and say, oh, mea culpa, that was on me. No. No blame, no judgment, no accusations. It's just an honest look at where we are. But the key here is to focus, regardless of where you are, focus on goals, not past mistakes. That is critical, to focus on where you want to go. It may be something as simple as we're in a hole financially with these credit cards, and where we want to go, our first goal is to begin paying those off. We're not even talking about saving or retirement or growth. Or right now we're just talking about stopping the bleeding. And sometimes with triage, you're in a marriage that's struggling, and now you've got the compounded stress of financial matters. Sometimes in triage, just stopping the bleeding is a win. So here's an opportunity for you to lead, and I would suggest you start with a no-blame money talk. And if I were in your shoes, and if I would have known this years ago when my marriage was falling apart, this is one of the things I would have done. We would have said, listen, no blame. You can't blame me. I'm not going to blame you. No accusations. And if one of us makes a mistake and screws that up, and we do blame or we do accuse, we just stop, we forgive, and we move right on. But I want to have a no-blame conversation, and I want to focus on goals, not past mistakes, not the blame, none of that, no judgment, but just the goals, where we are, an honest look at where we are, and what the two of us feel like we need to do together to improve where we are. So that's the first thing. Start with a no-blame money talk. Second, create a simple budget together. Just write down your total income, list out the fixed expenses, then track the variable expenses. Maybe identify some problem areas where money is slipping away. Set up a plan for maybe some debt reduction or increased savings. These are simple steps. Okay, list out fixed expenses. And as you work through this, and if you're doing it without the blame and without the judgment, you may find opportunities to improve your situation as you work together. Maybe you land, let's see, for example, here's a good one. Maybe you land at a spot where you look at your fixed expenses and you realize, okay, neither one of us have had a speeding ticket or any accidents in the last 2 or 3 years. Maybe we should look at the fixed expense of insurance and see if we can't get a better rate. Or maybe in tracking our variable expenses. I'll give you a good one here. That's food, gas, entertainment, the things that aren't written in stone every month, not the monthly bills, but things that you're going to spend money on, right? I'll give you a perfect example of mine. One of mine, when I started really tracking my money so I could figure out where I was spending it and why there wasn't as much left as there should have been. I started looking at through bank statements, and I realized that it was $4 or $5 for a coffee here, or $1.50, $1.75, $2 for a soft drink there, as I was traveling and throughout my day. And I own a business, and I have things that I'm doing, and I'm constantly on the move, and I got to looking, just thinking, man, that's starting to add up. And so for me, one of the solutions was I went and bought a $20, $25 nice water big mug, 40-ounce mug, stays in my truck. And when I get thirsty, if I need something while I'm out, I can go into that same store I used to go into and buy a $2 soda, and instead I can get water out of the fountain with ice, and it doesn't cost me anything. And then if I want a soda or a cup of coffee, instead of, I used to think, well, I'm not getting one of those frou-frou coffee drinks. I just like black coffee. It was still $3, $4, $5, right? So I just started carrying, I keep a water mug. That's all it's for. It's dedicated just for water, stays in my truck. And if it's sitting there a couple of days with water in it and I haven't been in my truck, I get in there, toss it out, stop at the store and refill it with ice and water. They don't charge for that. It's free. And then if I want coffee, I make a pot at home. Or if I want a soft drink or something different, I can buy it at the store in a 2-liter or 12-pack or whatever, and have it at the house. And that's way better cost than if I'm buying a single in a convenience store. So little things like that can start to show up as you work through this. So you're listing out your fixed expenses, and you're tracking your variables, and you're identifying problems areas. Maybe you're starting to work through a plan or an idea for debt reduction or savings. Here's one rule that I learned years ago that I started with. It's called the 50-30-20 rule. 50% of your income goes towards needs, housing, food, insurance. 30% goes towards wants, entertainment, vacations, hobbies, that kind of thing. 20% you use towards savings and debt payoff. That's a pretty simple rule. You may be well more advanced than that, but for the person that may not be, I'm just throwing out a suggestion. 50% for needs, 30% for wants, 20% for savings and debt payoff. There's options here, and there's ways to dig out. The next one is you could establish a money meeting routine. Check in weekly or monthly to review finances and adjust the plan. Celebrate wins. That is huge. Celebrate wins. Maybe when you pay off a credit card, or you stuck to the budget, or you maybe built some savings. Celebrate those wins with her. That is important, because now you're both getting that sense of accomplishment. You're building that foundation together, and you're building it together. That's critical. Maybe you set up a fun money allowance. Okay, a fund money allowance is simple. Each spouse gets a no questions asked amount to spend on whatever they want. Now, you two obviously have to agree to this and agree to the amount. But what it does is it prevents resentment and sneaky spending. Now, if you're starting out, if you're struggling financially, your fund money allowance to begin with may be just $5 each. And that $5, you can spend it with no reservations. So if you want to spend it on sugary candy, or you want to spend it on a golf ball, whatever it is, that's your fun money allowance. But over time, as you work together and build, that number will go up as everything else improves. It's just an idea, because it's going to save that resentment or the potential for sneaky spending. And that way you are actually doing this together. So those are the first two areas, okay? So we're talking, that was, how financial stress impacts the marriage, and then some strategies we just went through, okay? And now let's finish up with this third section, encouraging open and transparent communication about financial goals. And this is the critical piece here. A lot of the first two are common sense for people that have lived for a while. And especially, you've grown and you've figured some things out as you've grown in life. But this one, encouraging this open and transparent communication about financial goals. So money should be a team effort, not a battle. You and her should not be in a battle with each other. It should be a team effort. And it's the opportunity for you to lead in this, even if you're struggling in your marriage. This is an opportunity for you to lead in this to potentially help build on top of a good foundation of money and relieve some of those stresses. Okay? So money should be a team effort, not a battle. Avoid the parent-child dynamic when it comes to finances, where one of you is controlling all the money and the decisions, and the other one is acting as the child, because it tends to breed resentment. If you're the child, it's time to grow up. Okay? And if she acts like the child, then it's time for you to love her, but in a stern enough way that she begins to grow up. But you have to avoid that parent-child dynamic financially. We have to work on this together. I need you and you need me. So let's be grown-ups about this and figure it out together. Talk about financial goals early and often. Don't wait for a crisis. Here's something I can promise you. Every one of you either just came through a hard time, you're in the middle of a hard time in some area of your life, or before the week's out, the phone's going to ring or somebody's going to text or something, and you're going to be going back into a hard time. And that is the human condition. So don't wait for a crisis. Talk about your financial goals early and talk about them often. And if you've been married for some time and you're struggling through a marriage that is struggling right now, then you need to get in. If you really want to save it, you need to get in there and you need to talk about your finances often. Right now, and use this opportunity to remove that force multiplying stressor, work together, build on the foundation of trust between each other, and it'll go a long ways to help every aspect of your marriage. So talk about your financial goals. Ask each other, where do you want to be financially in a year, 5 years, 10 years? Have these conversations. What financial habits do we need to change? How can we support each other without judgment? Maybe she's struggling with something and you can figure out a way to support her, or you're struggling with something. But you've got to have these conversations to figure out how that works and what's going on. And then make a game plan together. Whether it's paying off debt, saving for a house, planning for retirement, you work as a team. Again, you're on the same team, so work like it. Don't be battling and fighting each other. And these are ways that you can encourage open and transparent communication about financial goals. Open communication about money. This is kind of a key takeaway here. Open communication about money isn't about controlling each other. It's about creating a shared vision for your future. And finally, final thoughts. Money is a tool. It should never be a weapon in your marriage. Never. If you've been avoiding financial conversations, you need to start today. Figure this out. Sit down. And even if you have to just be so honest as to say, listen, we're struggling financially, and right now maybe we're in a place where we don't even like talking with each other, but we've got to figure this part out. So let's sit down, no judgment, no accusations. I just want us to work on this together. Maybe this will help relieve some of the stress in other areas of our marriage. But we got to work on this. So money's a tool. It should never be a weapon. If you've been avoiding financial conversations, you need to start today. And then the last two things, I want you to go back through this, and you can go to the show notes if you want to read it, or you've already made note of something, but pick one strategy from this episode and apply it to your life this week. Just one. You just got to start somewhere. And finally, this episode, this podcast, you probably know somebody else in your life. Maybe you work with them. Maybe you go to church with them. You know another man where his marriage may be struggling. And I want you to share this with him, because there may be some things in these episodes that he needs to hear as well. That's it, guys. That's it for today. This is episode number 16, and this is talking about money problems and how to navigate financial stress together. I really thank you guys for being here, and I really want you to grow in this, and I want to help you save your marriage as you fight for it. So pick out one of these action items and do it today. Share this with somebody else. Once you share it, you're not only just learning for yourself, but now you're helping somebody else along. As always, wherever you get your podcast from, if you would be so kind as to rate us and the 5 stars thing or whatever it is, wherever you get yours from, I would appreciate that. And I thank you guys for being here. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Men Save Your Marriage podcast. Thanks, and have a great day.